Hi guys, welcome to the fourth episode of the Architectural Trap Faraway Sessions, and in this episode we'll be talking about architectural journalism, a very beginner's guide to understanding what it is and finding out areas where you can study more about it. So I am joined by Suchit Datta and Anandana Datta, who are both students and enthusiasts in the field, and also Darshit Nakrani, who is an enthusiast in the field of history of architecture, does a lot of writing in that sphere. Fair warning before we get into the episode, it's more based on the conversation, so there's not a lot of graphics to support it like the other videos, but I still hope you enjoy it. Let me start with a very simple question. What is architectural journalism for you guys?
Uh, when it comes to architectural journalism, I feel it's just about interpretation, basic interpretation, because of our design, whatever we do and whatever other architects do. And I feel, the act of documentation is so important that I feel it has contributed significantly to the mankind. And that is exactly what I feel architecture journalism does. And that is one of the reasons why our professors and often, like when we need to refer to some of the projects that other architects did, we go to ArchDelhi and Tezeen. So that is exactly what architectural journalism did, right? They documented buildings.
Well, I can talk about what it is, what I feel like it is. I don't think it's one thing. I think there can be different kinds of architectural journalism. Primarily, I think if we divide it into two parts, there's one kind of architectural journalism which is mostly to get it out to a diverse population, people who don't really know about architecture. When we talk about, when architects or architectural critics, architectural journalists, they write about buildings, they write about spaces, and then it's more of an awareness that they create for the general public, for them to know what this profession is. Not even what this profession is, it could be about what that space is about, and if it's comparatively more important in today's scenario. And the other kind of journalism, I think it's more personal. It's about how somebody experiences a space, or how what they think about a space. It's not merely just documentation, it's also the experience of that space without actually going into that space.
Yes, I totally agree with what both of them says. That firstly, architecture journalism is about documenting the things, how buildings have evolved, and I think so. Basically, when we say history of architecture, what it is basically documenting everything in history that has been written down. So that is a form of architecture journalism. Architecture journalism, and what other colleague also said, that it's also about transpiring all the changes and everything, even to a layman, so that they would understand about it, and it also has a personal touch to it. So I do agree with both of them that architecture journalism is about both of these things.
All right. So, having said that, I'll start with Darshit again by asking you the simple question. So, when we say architectural journalism is for transpiring whatever is happening in the architectural world to a layman,
Yes.
or documenting the past, would you say that the ultimate goal for an architectural journalist or an architectural journalism piece is to create awareness, and in continuation to that question, how much of it is important in today's scenario?
Well, I think so. Architecture journalism is important in raising awareness, as you said. So it doesn't merely adhere to the fact that we have to raise awareness regarding building, particular design or style, regarding what is happening in the field, but also the political scenario of the field. Like when we talk about unequal pay scale, or the movement that had been started, Aki slavery or something that sort. It's the duty, or I should say, architecture journalists should be the one at the forefront who should be raising these awareness, not only amongst laymen, but also amongst our architect professional brothers.
Right. Just for the understanding of the basic audience, can you explain the term slavery?
It is basically when I would say, when some reputed architects or established architects exploit the interns, or the so-called uh, people at the lower tier of the office, by not
Okay.
paying enough or extra working hours and so.
Right, so taking advantage.
I hope
So,
I hope this does not get me in any controversy on a lighter.
no, I think yeah, it totally addresses a very important point. So, Suchet, Anandana, both of you currently being in the academic, field, have you guys faced something of similar sort in terms of, what Darshit has coined architectural slavery for that matter? Have you faced something similar in your day-to-day life as an architectural academic student?
So far, my experience goes, I would say that, having interned in two offices till now, what I have faced is I haven't been paid even a penny. That's for a good news or a bad news, that you can say. But the fact is, like, obviously I wouldn't mention the name of the firms, but I would like to quote you a thing that one of the owners told me as to when I asked if I should be paid or not. He said that, Sujit, you are a green student, okay, which means that you're a absolutely fresh bird out of the field, and I have to invest in you, okay. So I thought for the time being during the interview stage, I thought that, okay, fine, this is legit. But when I actually started working after a month, I actually realized that he invested 30% in me and I gave him back 70%, okay. But
Right.
I didn't get any remuneration for that, and that was really sad. So I feel this explains artist slavery, and I don't need to explain anything more on it. And I'm sure
Okay,
this is
so
exactly what is happening everywhere.
Okay, so I think before we move on to Anandana, I'll just float one more simple question to you. After that happened, what made you go back to the second firm and again, work without a penny?
Okay, so the first firm where I joined, it was a boutique firm, as you say, with 2 to 3 employees, a very small firm working on very niche projects, mainly 1 or 2 projects.
Mm-hmm.
So over there, when I was like told this thing that you're a green student, and after a while, I got an offer from a very big firm. So I went there. I thought that, okay, fine, they may pay me after a month. So it's a big name. I can work under a big name. I went there. I worked for a month, and as you know that in a big firm, you are made to work like, okay, I'm not using the words right now. So like, he made me work like anything, okay? And after a month, as you know, like they didn't pay me a penny, but of course the certificate is all that could matter to me. So that's all I took back from the firm and the experience. That's it. But that
Right.
does not justify that you got an experience and a certificate, so you won't be paid. That does not make sense. And like you've seen, I actually paid more than $5,000 in my conveyance to go to that firm in a month. So at least if they could pay me that for a month. So yeah, that's it.
I agree to it 100% because I mean, right now where I'm working, I am paid, but it's in no way. It's in no way a reflection of how much I work here, and it's just for the sake of it, and nobody really talks about it here, and that is a strict no conversation. And I think it's very wrong because so many countries like Ireland and places like that, unpaid internships, any kind of unpaid labor is absolutely illegal. And while I was this one summer vacation, I wanted to intern at one of the offices in Ireland, and I really wanted to work there. So I said, it's fine if you just give me some kind of accommodation, and I don't need to be paid because I really wanted to work there, and it was
Right.
around 2 years back, and I thought it was important, and they said no, because I mean it wouldn't be a problem if we could provide you with a place to stay and we would let you work, but I mean we don't want to do that because it's against our morals to actually not pay you and make you work. But that is an exception, that is not the rule, because most people are more than happy to get you work and not pay you anything. I had applied to firms in Kerala, very good firms, and I mean they had given me a list of duties that I would have to do, other than normal architectural work, and I don't really want to say it out loud what those were, but they were, I think, more than 10 hours of work every day, and they wouldn't pay me for that. So I don't think that's fair at all.
Right. Absolutely. In terms of my
Actually,
own
Indranil, I have to
personal experience,
add
yeah,
a point to it.
yeah.
Uh, when we are talking about artist slavery, we are all at every one of us is at the lowest tier. We do not own a firm or anything. I think so. It would be interesting to get a perspective from the other side as well.
Right. So I think what I'll do is I'll take up this question, and then hopefully in one of the future episodes when we have a panel of architects, I'll make sure to put this question in front of them, and we'll see what they have to say about it. But having said that, we understand we kind of deviated on one aspect of architectural journalism. So what would you say is the basic difference between an architectural journalist and an architectural critique?
What I think is journalism basically relates more relates towards is an entire gamut, or I could say an umbrella under which architecture critique is just a specific, I would say, because a critique's role is in interpreting the style of architecture, the design, and commenting about it based on his own interpretations or at least some research. Whereas a journalist has multiple roles, as I said, in raising awareness, also writing about critique is a part of journalism. So I think so that is the difference based on what I've understood it till now.
Architecture journalism is the bigger domain of where a subset is architecture criticism. I personally feel that, an architectural journalist has to be equally good in designing as he or she needs to be good in, interpreting the same, right? Because I feel an architectural journalist has a very important role in playing the fact that, the very fact that, he or she comprehends, like the journalist comprehends the designer's mind and at the same time interprets it the same to the users or the readers who are reading it. Okay, and I feel this is very important role that the journalists play.
Coming from that line of that thought process, what I would like to ask you is, do you think uh, you need to be trained in a form of architectural journalism? And I think Anandana can start this because she has it as a elective subject in her studies. So do you think it's important to be a trained architectural journalist, or can anyone who sees, understands, and experiences architecture can be an architectural journalist?
Um, I think I don't think you actually need to be trained in order to do it, because I have been kind of trained, and I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Because if you have if you have read about it, and if you have actually done it yourself, given it a try, I don't think it takes that long to learn it. And lots of people who are not really architects or have not received any kind of formal architectural education have gone into architectural criticism, like Prince Charles.
Okay,
he
yeah.
he keeps writing about architecture, not in a very positive way, but he has a lot to say about it, and he doesn't really I think he has some degree in the field of arts, but he doesn't really have any kind of architectural base. So I don't think it's necessary. I think a basic understanding of architecture works.
I feel, as I said previously, that the architecture journalist sort of comprehends the designer's mind and the user experience together and, sort of interprets in words. So I feel for this phenomenon to happen, I don't think anyone needs to be sort of qualified in architecture journalism because the very prowess that you have in writing out, the flair that you have in writing, the very knack that you have is good enough and it works well when you step into this realm of journalism, and most importantly, I feel that since I use a lot of writing in my own design process, I feel it's very important for the journalists to sort of capture the nuances in words because it's not really that, as Darshit said previously, that, not everybody can actually read drawings. Okay, most of the laymen sort of reads what's being written. So I feel that's where architecture journalism plays a major role. So for that you don't need to be qualified in there. So yeah.
Even I think that no formal education is required for being an architecture journalist, because I myself have not got any particular training regarding architecture journalism. It's just that I've developed these skill sets out of my love for writing, as well as by reading a lot of books. Because as in when you read the books related to architects' work, or related to history of architecture, you develop a set of vocabulary that is very important in architecture journalism, and I think so that makes sense as well, and that is the
Uh,
important asset when you write about architectural journalism.
Right, right, right. I think even when we talk about the likes of Vitruvius, who wrote about the seven commandments of building an ideal architecture, he had never designed a building prior to that, and yet he has penned down what we can call a guideline to kind of designing buildings that we still use today. But having said that, you guys talked a lot about using your own time and finding books and people to read up to. So is there like a series of books, documentaries, movies, or anything that you would like to suggest to anyone who wants to be a little bit more informed about architectural journalism, or something that they might follow if they want to know more about the realm of journalism and criticism?
Since my interest lies in history and learning about the historical styles, I would still suggest. I don't know, a lot of you would just kill me, but Bannister Fletcher is a very nice book when it comes to understanding the architectural vocabulary. And
All right.
I would also say a lot of novels. If you read a few by Dan Brown, or any novel that you pick
yeah.
up, the way they describe a space, a room, or any location or setting, I think so that also plays an important role in understanding the very nit grits of the urban setting, or the stage in which a character is set. So you can learn a lot from even fictional novels as well.
Well, I can sort of suggest like few books in the sense that um, there are few people, let's say Alan de Botton, who is like currently my favorite author right now. So I feel this guy, he is not a graduate architect, neither does he have any formal education in the realm of architecture, but he has a very critical eye. So the best book that I can suggest to other viewers for this is Architecture of Happiness. So this is not really a philosophical book where you learn about the happiness and all, but it's really about the architecture of happiness. Okay, so it talks a lot about the architecture, the nuances in a simple home and the urban spaces, and it's a very good read. Anybody can read it. So Alan de Botton and Architecture of Happiness is one of the books. And to go more advanced into that stage, I would say Bernard Shomey is a very good person in this
Yeah.
realm, because he has written significantly many books, of which I could read only one, and it's really difficult, but it's really interesting to read. It's Architectural Disjunctions. So it's a very interesting read because he talks about very philosophical aspects of architecture, and which actually enriches the architectural mind. And
Right.
I feel that's a good read. So yeah, these two. And apart from that, I feel for most of the viewers, they can obviously switch on to Domus India, where Kaivan Mehta, all these people are writing
Yeah.
quite good. So those numbers are really good. So yeah.
For me, I like reading about other streams other than my discipline, and I think that kind of you know diversifies my ideas on architecture. I think movies, I think sci-fi movies, I think music, I think album art, I think so many things when I think criticism or journalism of architecture, or betterment of architecture, or understanding architecture better. I think to understand architecture better, we need to actually step out of just books about architecture. But there are books, I think, by very famous architects also. Like there's this book called Ideas and Forms by Le Corbusier.
Okay.
Yes, so books like that, I mean, all of these books are probably very famous, and people will be reading them because they're already by very famous architects. And there are a lot of books, but I don't want to name very specific books because, for me, very personally, books that don't actually relate to architecture have helped me more in understanding this whole discipline.
Right. Yeah, of course, that is a lot of great books. I think I would also agree with the recommendation for Domus. I also think, if you're doing something as simple as following the likes of Architectural Digest or A plus D, or
Mm-hmm.
Great Houses, or Arc Daily, the articles that come up on Arc Daily also, for that matter, where they do a great job of accumulating a lot of articles and papers on architecture and putting it up. I think that also makes a lot of sense. In terms of books, I think there are a lot of books that we can talk about. We can talk about the design book by D.K. Singh, multiple design books that he's talked about, the form and space. I think one of the other books that we need to talk about is, I think, the death and life of great
Great
American
American
cities.
cities.
Yeah, the death and
Mm-hmm.
life of great American cities, which I think is one of the earliest forms of very critical and brutal criticism of some of the buildings in the American scenario. There's also this book. That book is, I think, by Jane Jacobs. There's also this book called Punjab. So there's this book called Punjabi Baroque by Gautam
Mm-hmm.
Bhatia, which is something that I personally really recommend you going through. So if you stayed till the end of this video, I hope you really liked it, and obviously it's just a basic beginner's understanding of what architectural journalism is all about. I hope you all take out the time to study a bit more about the subject. There are a lot of good books are mentioned, so the list of books should be somewhere in the description down below, and if not, it's definitely present in the video. If you want to look up at more movies which you can watch to get an idea of architecture, like somewhere in the video up top there should be this link to the first video which talks about architecture and movies, which gives you a good idea of certain movies that will help you understand architecture much better. So till then, thanks for staying. Do subscribe for the upcoming videos.